I, female 35, am infertile. My ex-husband and I tried everything to have kids, but it never happened. He divorced me, went and married someone younger who was able to give him a kid. And from what I gather, they're expecting a second child together. It hurts like crap seeing someone else have what I couldn't. I sometimes get frustrated with myself and my family, blaming myself for everything. I turn to my friends for support, especially Alicia. She's in the same infertility boat as me, but she and her husband are currently trying IVF, hoping it'll work. Alicia asked me to help pay for her upcoming IVF cycle. I agreed to write her a check for $12,000. I really wanted to help her, and the money came with no strings attached. I wrote the check and gave it to her last week. She was very appreciative of it. The next day, I got a sudden message from a mutual friend, Carol, with a screenshot of her conversation with Alicia. It turns out she and Alicia were talking about the next IVF cycle, and Alicia said that she hoped the cycle would work because she didn't want to end up divorced and have her husband go marry someone younger and have a baby with them and another one on the way, and she's alone without a family at 35. She's 32. I was stunned and hurt. I knew she meant me here, but I didn't confront her. I simply contacted my bank and canceled the check. In the evening, Alicia called me to ask why I canceled the check, and I told her. She went crazy saying she didn't mean it that way and thought this was a somewhat inside joke between desperate and fertile women. She came over with her husband the next day, begging me to write another check, but I refused. An argument ensued, and her husband thought I wasn't being supportive of her, like when she supported me throughout my struggles. She left crying, and we hadn't talked since then. Her husband keeps reminding me, while repeatedly calling Carol a venomous snake, of the date of the next cycle, saying that they can't have it after I took the money that was supposed to pay for it back. Some friends think I'm being oversensitive. Carol's on my side, telling me to tell them to go kick rocks, but I feel so bad about it. What I've done just might damage our 15 years of friendship. Maybe I shouldn't have canceled it, but I just felt so offended by what she said about me and how she basically mocked my unfortunate circumstances. So, am I the idiot? Holy smokes, not the idiot. $12,000, no strings attached? Yeah, I'd be kissing your butt. You would even be my future kid's godparent, and I would wake up grateful for your existence every day. Bashing you to another friend behind your back? Heck no. I would be out there calling your praises from the rooftops. Alicia doesn't deserve your friendship, let alone your money. OP, she damaged 15 years of friendship. She used you as the butt of an inside joke. Despite knowing how hard this was for you, she hasn't taken any accountability for her wrongdoings, and she and her partner are blaming Carol for what she said. Their behavior afterwards shows no remorse, just bullying you and Carol. Manipulation via guilt tripping. Your friends can hand over their cash since they think you're oversensitive. You're not. Bullies always blame the victim, and it seems like you know a lot of them. So how many others she shares that joke to? You'll never know. Did they support you through your struggles with no strings attached money? If they did, then I'd say give them back exactly what they gave you and tell them you're done with them. On the other hand, if they offered emotional support, then that's what they can expect back. Even if you were to turn around and write them another $12,000 check, your friendship is forever ruined. Just keep your money. You can make more better friends. It sounds like Carol was looking out for you. There are others out there who are not two-faced like Alicia is. I was recently a bridesmaid for my best friend, her only bridesmaid, so many of her bridal duties fell to me. We'd been best friends since I was a teen, so I was fine with all this work. Quick info, I have health issues that lead to extreme fatigue as a symptom. The day before the wedding, I basically single-handedly set up her reception while she talked with some family and friends, which was fine. As I was wrapping up, she told me she needed my help sewing a button on her wedding dress as her aunt hadn't fully finished the alterations. I told her, of course I'd do this, and she said she'd call up her aunt to walk me through what needed to be done. I had a bad feeling about this, as it's only a button that hardly needs a walkthrough, but I put it down to my best friend being overly worried as it's her wedding dress. It wasn't one button. I got to her home and we got on the phone with her aunt. It's 6 buttons, the clasp to attach her cloak, which needed to be hemmed, and the corset lacing required adjusting. I was angry, but not at my friend. I figured she didn't know how bad it was. It had been her aunt's job to alter the dress. A little quick info, she bought a cheap dress figuring aunt could alter it. I fixed the dress, having to stay up until 3 a.m. to do so. Then I had to be up at 6 a.m. to be ready for the wedding. After we were ready for the wedding, my friend told me she'd forgotten to ask me to do this yesterday and asked me if I'd sew Marvel patches on her garter belt for her as a surprise for her fiancé. I agreed, albeit unhappily, as my hands were in agony from sewing into the early morning. So we got through the wedding. My friend promised me that I could go back to nap before the reception this evening, as there were a few hours between lunch and reception. That's basically all that was keeping me going. But then plans change, and she needs me to stay with her and not go back to nap. So I stay as I don't want to leave her alone and drink way too much coffee to try and remain semi-human, even though my body aches and I'm exhausted. Despite this, I'm struggling to stay awake at the reception and manage until the food is served and eaten and the first dance happens. I figure I've seen all the important parts and go to my friend, telling her I need to go home now to sleep, as I literally cannot stay upright anymore. She got upset at me, saying how I wasn't allowed to leave and she needed me by her side, how I was her only bridesmaid, so I had to stay until the very end in case she needed me, and how I needed to greet guests who turned up late. I got upset at this and told her to get over herself, pointing out all that I had done for her and that I loved her, but there were limits with my health concerns. So I left and slept for about 14 hours, waking up the next day with a migraine and various aches. She's upset, thinking I ruined her day and that I'm selfish for not putting her first, that I was needed by her side, and how a real friend would prioritize her day. So am I the idiot for leaving early? She used you as a seamstress, wedding decorator, planner, and a freaking doorman and greeter. You didn't ruin her day. She ruined it by using and abusing you. Not the idiot. And I guarantee you avoided another late night as head of the cleanup crew. I'm sorry, what crew? It would have just been her. When I got married, I had one bridesmaid as well. She literally walked down the aisle and then held my bouquet and engagement ring until I took them off her. If I'd known I had a virtual slave for the day, I would have utilized her much better. That dress should not have been left to the last minute, nor the garter. She should have asked some friends or a groomsman to help set up, and she could have asked her mom or aunt or other friends to greet late guests. To expect one person to do all that while all she had to do was smile and have fun is unreasonable. I wouldn't consider this individual a friend. My younger son is 22 and the older one is 27. I'm close to both of them. The older one is married and his wife is pregnant. They both have good jobs and own their own home. However, she makes more money than him and is currently on maternity leave. My younger son is a student teacher. He loves what he does, but finances are tight for him. If he bought a house, the mortgage payment would be less than his rent, and he'd be building equity. Although this is his dream, right now, he can't get approved because of income, and he needs more saved for a down payment plus closing costs. I told my son that I would co-sign his loan because I knew he'd be able to pay as he always pays his rent. I also said I would pay $8,000 towards his down payment, leaving him with probably just a few thousand more of the down payment and then the closing cost. My family thinks I'm showing favoritism to my younger son. When my older son and his wife bought their house, they received no financial assistance from me. This is true, but they quickly qualified for their loan and didn't need a co-signer because of their dual incomes. They had the money saved for their down payment and closing and didn't need the help from me. I gifted them antique furniture that belonged to my mother and bought them a washer and dryer. I don't know the value of the furniture, but the washer and dryer set was over $2,000. My family said I should split the $8,000 and give half to my older son and his wife for the baby and half to my younger for his house. I remember how expensive babies are, but I don't think they need that $4,000. My daughter-in-law will open an education savings account for the baby when she's born, and I intend to make annual contributions to that. That will be more beneficial in the long term than a one-time gift of an unneeded $4K that'll just get spent on toys or baby furniture. Still, my cousin made me worried when she said my decision might impact my relationship with my older son and future granddaughter. I don't believe in fairness for the sake of fairness. It's better to give what is needed when it's needed, rather than constantly balancing accounts. Am I being an idiot? Not the idiot. Please don't let anyone make you feel bad for helping your child. My parents have helped each of their children at different times in different ways. I never got out the calculator to ensure my sibling didn't get more than me. We're different people with different experiences in different situations. Fairness for fairness' sake is moronic. You are the idiot. I don't think it's really fair to compare a 22-year-old to a 27-year-old. Was your older son in a much better position at 22? Or is he okay now because he's worked hard without help for 5 years? You need to speak to your eldest and see how he feels. Your family isn't wrong that this could be viewed as favoritism and cause issues. Exactly. Also, why does your 22-year-old son need to buy now? Even if he's still a student, shouldn't he wait until he's qualified and settled in a job? What happens if he can't get a job within commuting distance when he qualifies, or if a great opportunity comes up in a different town or country? I don't think you're the idiot for wanting to help your son, either of them, but I do think that settling down at 22 while still a student isn't necessarily the best idea. He's still young. There's so much world out there to see and so much life yet to experience. So keep the offer for 5, maybe 10 years' time. I, 19 male, had a job taking care of 2 toddlers and a dog and doing light housework 4 days a week for a single mom who got my contact info from a business card I had posted in my dad's pediatric therapy office. Since the weather started warming, the dog has been shedding like crazy. Like, I would vacuum the couch, and the next day it would look like I hadn't. I would lightly tug on the dog's hair and would pull out huge tufts. The dog's been scratching all the time, etc. My dad's dog had a double coat like theirs, and one morning when I was leaving for work, I packed his brushing tool in my bag. Then when the kids were napping, I spent a full hour outside brushing the dog. The dog seemed to enjoy being brushed, and after an hour there was a huge pile of hair that had been brushed out. So before I vacuumed it up, I sent the mom what I thought would be a funny text saying, "Brush the whole new dog out of the dog's coat." Looking back, I realized that maybe I should have asked first, but at the time it seemed like something within the scope of caring for the dog. The mom went ballistic. She called me yelling, saying that by brushing the dog and not letting the hair fall out on its own, I was causing harm to the dog. She said I was an idiot, and she couldn't believe she trusted me with her kids and that today was my last day. I was extremely upset because I had been with the family for 3 months, and she had never yelled at me like that before. I left as soon as she got home because she was still fuming. I immediately lined up a job with another family, and I'm supposed to start Monday. The mom who yelled at me called me 2 days later, saying she was sorry about the misunderstanding and that firing me was an overreaction. I told her I was no longer available, and she started crying about how hard it was to find a new sitter for special needs kids. Her kids are autistic and have therapy at my dad's office. When I stood firm, she started texting my dad and asking him to do something. My dad is annoyed at being dragged into this, and while he respects my decision, he wishes I would keep watching her kids for a short time to keep the peace. I hate that I put anyone in an awkward position, but I also don't want to work for someone like that. Am I the idiot? Edit, my dad is a physical therapist. Not the idiot at all. Your dad is kind of lousy for putting this on you. He's a therapist, and he can't see the mother's instability and how it endangers you? I mean, if this is how she reacts to a completely normal thing to do with a dog, God forbid anything ever goes wrong with one of her kids. You're an adult, and accusations against you could lead to legal problems. Stay far away from her. What OP did was not only a normal thing, but a lovely thing to do with a dog. It made the dog so much more comfortable, and it was a ton of work for OP to do. And it was extremely kind of him. Dogs need to be brushed. No idea why she thought the dog's coat should just fall out naturally. I have an Akita, and I can vacuum 3 times a day. If you don't brush the dog, it could get hot spots. This is not a person you want to continue working for. I wouldn't want to go back to work and have her accusing me of things based on other crazy beliefs. She probably called back to beg him when she realized how much less fur there was around the house to clean up. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She was abusive. Stand firm and don't go back. And shame on your dad for wanting to send you back for more to keep the peace. Don't reward her terrible behavior. Oh, and you didn't put anyone in an awkward position. Her actions did. My female teen, mom and dad, got divorced 5 years ago. My parents have 50-50 custody of me, but I mostly live with my mom and spend a lot of my weekends and summers at my dad's house. I have my own room at my dad's house, and I'm allowed to lock it when I'm not there because the woman, 27, he lives with, has 2 young kids, and they went into my room and wrecked some of my stuff when she first moved in. My dad replaced everything, told her that my room was off limits without my permission, and got me a lock with a key that only he and I had. My dad, 47, seems happy to spend time with this woman and her kids, but he still makes time for me and makes me a priority. When he got a new TV, I got the old one, and he mounted it in my room. One thing though, this woman likes to have other mommies and kids over for playdates. That's fine. Maybe she and my dad will get married, and she has every right to have guests over. The problem is that sometimes she expects me to watch all the kids while she and her friends sit outside and drink wine or whatever. She even tried leaving them with me and going to brunch with her friends. Not okay. My dad has told her to knock it off. He told me it might be nice if I chose to help, but that I wasn't obligated to help. So yesterday and today were days off from school, so I was over at my dad's for a long weekend. My mom was having a party, and I didn't want to be around. So I was in my room when I heard a knock. There she is with 4 kids. She wants me to entertain them while she talks to her friends. I say no thank you. She insists and leaves the kids in my room. So I say I'm watching a movie, it's called Ready or Not, and it's kind of gory. Not super gross or anything, just not meant for little ones. It starts out with a pretty wedding, but kids are already bored because it isn't a cartoon or a Marvel movie. A few minutes later, the gory starts, and the kids run to their mom. She comes back inside and yells at me for scaring the kids. She says she's going to take my TV away. I laughed and closed the door. She was mad and told my dad I was a disrespectful brat and that my TV should go in the kids' playroom. He said no, but he talked to me and said I could have handled it better. He isn't mad, but he's disappointed. So am I the idiot for using a scary movie to keep her kids out of my room? Not the idiot. Your dad's partner expects a free babysitter whenever you're around. So overall, that's a tame way of handling unwanted babysitting. She and your dad need to talk about boundaries and expectations of a blended family. The only person your dad should be disappointed in is himself for letting his girlfriend get away with what she does for this long. You're not her free babysitter. This woman thinks she can force OP by ignoring her and her father's no and being persistent. OP was smart with the movie, but ideally, she should have said no, referred her to the dad, and walked away and closed the door. The more OP finds creative solutions, the more likely it is something will backfire, and this woman will take advantage to prove that she's in the right. My 29 female ex-husband, Carter, 27 male, and I divorced almost 4 years ago. He divorced me. I was blindsided because I thought we had a very happy marriage. Unfortunately, this year, I was in a hit and run and was hospitalized. My insurance didn't cover much, and they never found out who did it. I drained my savings. I couldn't live in my apartment anymore since I could no longer physically walk up 5 flights of stairs. I had a job but was let go. I was struggling, and it was a low point in my life. Carter and I hadn't kept in touch, but he contacted me and said I could live in one of his spare rooms. I had no other options. I offered to pay him rent, but he refused. He has a maid for chores. I cook for him sometimes. It's okay. He's very chatty and bubbly. If I close my eyes, I can pretend we're friends again and that we never took the leap into a relationship and a divorce. My childhood friend, Claire, called to sympathize with me about not finding a place. I told her that I was living with Carter. She insisted on coming over, as she had also been friends with him and had refused to take a side. When she arrived, Claire started to talk about how this was a bad situation. She asked me if I paid rent, and I told her no. She said his pity would end and asked if I wanted to be a beggar for the rest of my life. I told her I wasn't a beggar, and she said she would tell our friends. I pleaded with her not to. Claire then said that if I didn't think my actions were wrong, I wouldn't have cared if she told everyone. I feel ashamed. I've been avoiding her. She called me yesterday and said I was being childish and emotionally manipulative for behaving that way. Am I the idiot? What the heck is up with Claire? Is she screwing your husband? This witch didn't take your side in the divorce, but now's concerned that you're taking advantage of your ex? Something is up here. Not the idiot. He offered, and you have little options. Block her and anyone who agrees with her. This is between you and Carter, no one else. Just do your best to get on your feet again. Claire thrives on being perfect and right. It's a terrible quality. Claire pretends to come over to help, but instead openly judges, instills fear in those who need compassion, threatens to blackmail you socially, and offers zero practical help on her suggested roadmap. Claire is gross. Do not let her put fear inside of you. Carter is happy you're around, and things will work out for you. Stop interacting with Claire ASAP. She offers you nothing, but you offer her a chance to look down on someone, the opportunity to be superior, etc., etc. That's not friendship. She would never risk her marriage. She's smart and intelligent. Claire's family's always paid her rent, and she has a trust fund that'll run out 2 or 3 generations after her. She thinks Carter's handsome, but flaky and not her type. She considers him a good friend because they run in the same social circles. I was friends with her first, but I can't fit in with wealthier people like them. She always told me that Carter and I wouldn't stay married because he'd get bored of me. And she wasn't wrong, but she could have supported me instead of being neutral. Carter is very kind, and I sometimes feel guilty for my complicated feelings. He wants to chat a lot, and I feel obligated to spend time with him because he's doing this kindness. He has a lot of friends, but he seems lonely. He cries in his sleep sometimes, which he never used to do. He doesn't like to be alone. There's a part of me that still loves him, and he keeps poking those parts of my heart. So then be his friend, and don't feel guilty. He offered and you accepted. No begging, no mooching. He's just being kind and a good friend. Are you sure Claire or some of your so-called friends didn't make up some outrageous lies about you and fed them to Carter? Did he tell you why he wanted a divorce? Claire said that he wouldn't stay married to you. Then he divorced you out of nowhere. But now he's the only one who helps you, and he still seeks emotional intimacy and cries in his sleep. I've read too many novels, but it appears suspicious by what you're writing here. I think she might be the reason he divorced you. She's an overprivileged, complacent woman with a superiority complex. One day life will kick her, and she'll learn some empathy and humility. I wonder if she's afraid you two might get close and end up back together, and her secrets come out. It's the only reason I can see that she's making such a big deal out of this. Cut her out entirely. She has no empathy and isn't a friend. I'll keep this short. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, has a truck. My husband and I were moving some furniture. About a week ago, we asked if he could help us or let us borrow the truck to move it. He said sure, and I went to pick up the truck yesterday. I get there and he asked where my husband was. I told him he was at home since he was moving the stuff to the driveway with a friend. I was heading over to the truck when he told me he couldn't give me the keys. I asked why, and he tells me I couldn't handle it. I asked if he was joking, and he just reiterated that I can't handle the truck. I told him I didn't know I needed some idiot to drive a truck. and left. I informed my husband of the situation, and it has spread. He called me angry, and we got into a big argument. He thinks I was a jerk since it is his truck. My sister is on his side, so I'm doubting myself. Also, I am a good driver, and I haven't had any crashes or tickets. He's never complained about my driving. I've driven larger vehicles before. So am I the idiot? Good grief, not the idiot. Unless the truck is a stick shift and you don't know how to drive a stick shift, nothing is at play here other than misogyny. I'd make can't handle it jokes at him for the rest of my life. With an ego that fragile, I put money on him losing it after the first joke. OP, can you pass me the potatoes? Well, I would, but I don't think you could handle it. What does that even mean, if not to be a misogynistic dig? He's clearly the idiot, and I'm glad you made a simple remark to reflect this and then left. And brother-in-law thinks you could have been nicer? Thank you for degrading me. Perhaps my tiny woman brain shall bake some cookies and clean your house as an apology for my lack of genitalia. LMAO, that's ridiculous. He can do what he wants with his truck, but he already agreed that you guys could borrow it. So his backing out shows his misogyny. Hope your husband is supporting you. I would let it go, knowing better how your brother-in-law considers women. If you're close to your sister, having a good sit-down conversation might be good. She probably internalizes a lot of misogyny if her husband treats her like that. We had new neighbors move in a while ago. Up until this point, I had no issues with them. They're a young couple with no kids and a large dog that barks no more or less than any other dog. About a week ago, they started painting the fence between our properties. I happen to know the fence is on my property, so they had no right to paint it. I went back and forth on whether I should say or do anything. At first, I thought it wasn't such a big deal. They were only painting the side facing their lot. However, as it turned out, they were doing that in preparation for painting their house pink. The rest of the houses in this neighborhood are regular house colors: gray, white, tan. It looks god-awful. This just didn't sit well with me, so I went over and told them that the fence they painted was actually my fence on my property. They were slack-jawed and mumbled, "Okay." So I said, "You'll fix it, right?" They said they didn't know how and asked if it was really that big of a deal. I told them, fine, why not just let me come into their property and mess around with their things? Then they asked me why I didn't say something before they were finished. And I told them that it wasn't my job to do their research for them. They should have known better when they got the land survey done at inspection. They said they waived inspection, which again, it's not my fault. They asked how they could fix this and keep the fence the color they'd chosen, as it would mean one side of the fence wouldn't match the others. I said, tough crap. It's not my problem. I told them I would be kind and give them the weekend to fix the fence. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Yes, you should have told them why they were painting it. Why didn't you? Well, as you yourself say, maybe it wasn't such a big deal. Seems the real issue is the color of the house. That's when you started complaining, saying things like, they should have researched, and tough crap, and giving them until the weekend to fix it. You sound really punitive and unforgiving. Are you like this with your other neighbors? I wonder what they really think about you. I suspect OP will realize they don't have the power they think they do. If I were the neighbor and OP told me I had until the weekend to fix it, I would tell them to get lost. OP chose not to say anything before or during. Now it's done on my time and at my cost, and they'll be a jerk about it? Enjoy your pink fence, buddy, or repaint it yourself, because I'm not fixing crap. Am I reading it wrong? I thought the fence color was fine. It's the house color he doesn't like. So he's making them redo the fence for no reason except to be an idiot. Also, a land survey is not part of the inspection process. So what are you on about? I hope they do get a land survey done now, because I can basically guarantee that your claim that the fence is on your property is BS. I really hope this is true. My dad had a neighbor who would scream at him every time he trimmed the bushes that she planted on his property because they scratched his car when he pulled into the driveway. One day he got sick of it and cut the bushes down entirely. She called the police on him. The police were basically like, "Why are we even here?" but ended up giving her a fine because her sidewalk was damaged and hazardous to other people. My dad gets into stupid, pointless fights, but man, I loved him in this moment. I, 58 female, have one daughter, Clara, 28. Clara never went to university because she said it wasn't for her and that it would be a waste of money. Clara's now engaged. She told me she wants to go to university before they have kids, so she has a backup plan if something goes wrong and she's left with nothing. She said her plan is to go to university for 3 years. We live in the UK, to study psychology. Then she'll have kids and be a stay-at-home mom immediately after she graduates and use her degree if she ever needs to. I asked why psychology, and she said it seemed like the easier degree to make a career out of. The problem here is she wants me to pay for it. I'm about to retire, and I don't want to pay for her degree that she likely won't ever use. I'm also skeptical about how valuable a degree will be for her if she has no experience working in that industry and got the degree long before she has to use it. I told her I'm not rich enough to pay for a degree that likely won't be used, and she should have a conversation with her fiancé about what they'll do if they split up after she's been a stay-at-home mom. I even suggested that she and her fiancé pay for it together, but she said they'll need to save all their money for having kids in the next few years. I said I needed to keep my money for my retirement and not waste it on a degree she doesn't plan to use or has a passion for. She said I was being unfair to her and that I should be worried about her being left destitute if her fiancé left her one day. I said she should be putting all the money she makes now into an account for herself and creating savings or investments in case anything happens, instead of making me spend thousands of pounds on a degree she probably won't ever use. She told me not to expect her to have me as part of her family anymore when I don't care about her future. Am I the idiot? Edit. She worked odd jobs for the first few years, and she's been a yoga instructor since she was 22. Honey, no. That ship has sailed. I'm saving so you don't have to fund my retirement. If I funded your college, I would require a payback contract. You're 28. It's time to grow up. I love you. She is 28, old enough to have gone to school and graduated, old enough to have a stable job and save, old enough to be considered an adult. There is no reason for you to pay for her choices. Your priority is you. Do not pay. You are not the idiot. She is. Yeah, I wonder what her fiancé thinks. They haven't gotten married, and she already anticipates him leaving her. She's almost 30. Her demand is unreasonable, and the fact that she's threatened to cut you out if you don't give in paints her as very manipulative. Do not cave. She's being ridiculous. She'll change her mind when she needs free childcare from grandma. OP, a bachelor's in psychology, is completely worthless. The only thing that would be more worthless is a 10-year-old psych degree without experience or continuing education. No wonder she doesn't want to use her own money for her degree. She knows it'll be a waste of money. Just curious, who does she expect to pay for the wedding? My husband has a teen daughter, Mia, from a previous relationship. She lives with us part-time and has recently started dating around. We haven't always gotten along the best, but I love her like my own regardless. This past weekend, Mia was going on a movie date with a new boy that she said would end at around 9 p.m. My husband was at work at the time. He's a first responder, and his hours and flexibility are a bit uncertain. However, he was aware of the date and was pretty sure he'd be able to pick her up, so that was the plan. I'm in my 3rd trimester of a rough pregnancy and was placed on bed rest by my doctor. I would not be able to pick her up. Here's where the dilemma arises. At around 8:15 p.m., Mia called asking if her dad could pick her up now because her date made her uncomfortable. I was concerned for her, but I felt stuck. I explained the situation to her. I was on bed rest and couldn't drive, and her dad was still at work and couldn't leave yet. We don't have any real family that lives nearby, and I didn't want her spending another 45 minutes with this idiot boy. So I asked a neighbor if they could pick her up. They did. My husband and Mia are both upset with how I handled the situation. They seem to think I have some resentment because she's my stepdaughter, which is not the case at all. They said that I should have acted more urgently because we don't know this boy very well, and he could have hurt her. They think that I should have just violated my bed rest order and went because it's a short drive and doesn't require much movement. I feel like I did my best, considering my physical limitations. Am I the idiot? Mia calls for a ride to get away from her date, gets a ride away from her date, and is now upset that she checks notes. Got a ride to get away from her date? Yeah, you can pretty safely ignore that crap. Not the idiot. You found a way for her to get home sooner than planned. I can see why your daughter's upset, because she's young enough not to fully understand how serious bed rest is, plus a teenager who had a challenging experience. However, your husband is an adult and a first responder, so he has zero excuses for this nonsense. Also, what was his plan if he got held at work and couldn't pick her up? A backup should have been ready to go since you're on bed rest. This is my take as well. As a first responder, he should understand the importance of bed rest and the medical complications that could occur if something happened while you were out picking up the older daughter. Why risk it when there are alternative measures? How about telling her to plan a date when he's off next time? Sucks, but if he wants to control things, he must be ready for all of it. A pregnant woman on bed rest who's out driving is a recipe for disaster. Oh, come on. I was on bed rest, and my husband, a computer guy, understood exactly what that meant and why. Most decent husbands whose wives are on bed rest are scared stiff that if they violate the bed rest, they'll go into preterm labor. It could end up very badly for the mother and the baby. They're very protective and have a backup plan if they can't do their assigned job. OP, your husband is the idiot, and his daughter may be worried that she'll be less important when the new baby comes. He just reinforced those possible worries by not having any backup plan. My husband was in an accident while he was visiting his family. My in-laws weren't planning to tell me because we've been having issues for over a year that they know about, but he kept asking for me, so they finally did. He had already been discharged from the hospital by the time I got there, so he was recovering at their family home. I went there as soon as my flight landed, but my brother-in-law refused to let me in the house to see him. He told me to wait outside until my husband woke up, and if he still wanted to see me, he would let me in. He was also implying the accident was my fault. I was tired and irritated, so I told him that if my husband died, I would inherit the family home he was preventing me from entering, and then I'd keep him outside. He took it to me and I was disappointed my husband hadn't died, which couldn't be further from the truth. I eventually left and got a hotel because he got so angry that he was scaring me, and continuing to argue with him would have been pointless. He told everybody what I said, so when I went next to see my husband, things were awkward between his family and me. No matter how many times I tried to explain, I never meant it the way my brother-in-law took it. It hasn't made a difference. The only person who didn't take my brother-in-law at his word is my husband, who's been making a joke out of it. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If one of my in-laws tried to prevent me from seeing my possibly dying husband, God help them. So your husband's family wasn't going to tell you that your husband was injured in a car accident, and I'm guessing it was fairly bad since he was actually admitted to the hospital. What is that? And then when you arrived, your brother-in-law refused to let you see him, even though he was asking for you? Your brother-in-law seriously overstepped when he was blocking you from reaching your injured husband. He had no right to do that. He was discharged from the hospital, not dying, and in their own family home. It's messed up, but more dynamics are at play than here in this story. OP's immediate threat to take the inheritance adds fuel to the fire. And it's weird that despite being well enough to leave the hospital, the husband never called OP to check in. I agree. They've been having issues for over a year. They're in such little contact that she has to fly to see him, and the first thing she does is try to bring up the inheritance. Everyone's the idiot here. Why the heck did you say that? How did that help the situation? What were you hoping to achieve? This is a far cry from a loving wife blocked from seeing the dying husband picture you're painting. Yeah, it's definitely everyone's the idiot here. Still, I have to lean towards the husband's family being the bigger idiots, because if he asked for her, repeatedly blocking her is beyond the pale. OP could be the worst person in the world, but ignoring his wishes is incredibly messed up. I say this as someone who was hospitalized not that long ago. I would have been so angry if someone ignored my wishes of who I wanted to see. Question: is it your home brother-in-law was keeping you out of, or his parents' home? My husband inherited it from his father, so it's legally his, but his mother's the one who spends most of her time there and doesn't want me there. I never cheated on him or anything like that. His family mostly dislikes me because they're upset that I wouldn't agree to move to their country after my father-in-law died, and because I stopped making an effort with them when things got bad between us. So their image of me isn't great anymore. This is the answer I needed. They're idiots. Brother-in-law has no business refusing you access. The family refuses to acknowledge that until you're divorced, you are the wife and have rights. They may think that barring your visitation and your husband being bedridden, read stuck in the country, you'll get frustrated and agree to move to their country. The husband's family hates OP because she refused to go to their home country after her father-in-law died, presumably so her husband could financially support the family. Let me guess, your hubby is the oldest son too. Pre-global issue. I, 33 male, would go on a family vacation with my family, my parents in late 50s, brother 27, and sister 29. These occurred about every other year. For a multitude of reasons, we haven't made a trip since 2018. I'm married and we have a young toddler. My sister has a boyfriend, and my brother has some sort of terrier and no girlfriend I know of. My brother's morphed into a self-described dog dad, and based on social media, seems to rarely do things without the dog. We live in the same city, but in different areas, and we don't see him all that much. The few times I've been around his dog, it behaves fine. Unfortunately, it's too friendly for me, and I can't speak to how it behaves over multiple days or around babies. My parents have a beach house in Florida booked. In a few weeks, the deadline for a full refund for canceling is coming up, and my parents need to know if we're in. We live on the west side of the USA, so we'd be flying. I found out my brother plans to bring his dog. My parents aren't thrilled about it. It is what it is. Those are my parents' words. I am not a dog person. I despise them on airplanes. I don't want to travel with a dog. Tentatively, we're on the same flight. I don't want to stay the week in the same house as the dog. I don't want activities based on being dog-friendly, and I don't want the dog around my son. Our parents want to stay out of it and have us hash it out. I broached this topic with my brother. Essentially, he isn't flexible on the dog. It is his family, and it's a family vacation. He says my son will be far more annoying and loud than his dog. He seems firm on this, and I'm really ready to pull out of this trip. If I don't go, the trip may fall apart. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. It's a small dog, and you said it was well behaved. It's fair to ask if the dog is kept away from the baby. A baby is far more inconvenient than a dog. You can leave a dog home alone for a few hours if people want to eat at a nice restaurant. It's rude to bring a baby to a nice restaurant. They have bedtimes, and they scream at movies. Kids are awesome, but you're on a different planet if you think the vacation's going to revolve around the dog. You're mistaken. It'll revolve around your baby. I'm not sure that's so. The way he sets this up makes it sound like he's bashing his younger brother for having a dog but no girlfriend, as if bringing a girlfriend instead of a dog would be totally acceptable to him. The vibe OP gives me is that of an idiot, and I fail to see what OP means by the dog being too nice. OP sounds like he has a bit of a superiority complex about how a man should live, rather than he just doesn't want to be around the dog that he describes as being well-behaved and too nice. Quite frankly, the dog being there is not an inconvenience for anyone but his brother, if at all. The baby? That will likely inconvenience everyone, but God forbid if we mention it. Also, I want to point out that OP doesn't possibly think his opinion makes him the idiot. Nope, he just wants to know if not going will make him the idiot. He seems to believe his way of thinking is infallible. OP, go. Don't go. Who cares? I guess your family isn't that important to you if someone else's well-behaved dog makes you feel this way. My sister has a boyfriend, and my brother has some sort of terrier. I'm sorry, but this sentence cracked me up. LOL. Also, those of you comparing dogs to children are just, wow. Wild times, man. Wild times. Not the idiot. This is totally your boundary to draw, especially not wanting the dog around your son. Why do people need to bring their dogs everywhere? It's absurd to bring your dog on a plane on a cross-country trip. Surely that's not fun for the poor dog. I, 25 female, am about to get married to my fiance, 28 male, and we already got the wedding list down. However, my sister, 25, my twin, just rejected my invitation because she doesn't believe she can be at my wedding without her trauma being triggered. Her husband died 6 years ago, just 10 days after they got married, and now my sister thinks attending another wedding would trigger all these memories and it would be too much for her, even though she knew her husband would die soon after their wedding because he had late-stage cancer, and that was the only reason they even got married. It was 6 years ago, so by all means, she shouldn't be so traumatized that she'd avoid all weddings, including mine. Honestly, I feel like this trauma thing is just an excuse not to come, because we've always had a rocky relationship. But come on now, it's my wedding, so she should put that aside and support me during my biggest day. Also, her friend called me to complain about how our family's harassing my sister to come to my wedding, and that sent her into a depression and even made her skip work. I admit I did get my family to try to convince my sister to attend my wedding, but nobody's been harassing anyone, and I feel like she's once again playing the depression card so she can get away with her unfair treatment of me. But now even my fiance's on her side and wants to leave her alone because it's not worth it to bully anyone to come to our wedding. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Do you actually want your sister to celebrate with you at your wedding? Or are you just looking for an excuse to be awful to her? Really, she's playing the depression card? Her husband died 10 days after her wedding. I get that it happened a few years ago, but she's still allowed to grieve about it. Why do you even want her at your wedding? You said yourself that your relationship is rocky, and you seem to have a very low opinion of her. So why are you insisting? OP wants to rub her happy wedding in her sister's face because her sister made the bad choice of marrying a sick man about to die. Geez, OP, if your partner dies tomorrow, I hope your sister insists you accompany her on Valentine's Day, on his birthday, on every special date, for fun, and the day he died each year, so you can be there to have fun with her. Be a caring human. Pretend you're capable of empathy. For real. For everyone else, it was 6 years ago, but I'm sure for her, it still feels like yesterday. Come on, OP, don't you know depression and trauma aren't real? I mean, it's not like they got married to be together forever, right? Like it wasn't a real marriage because he was going to die anyway. Sarcasm, in case that wasn't clear. OP, you are the idiot, and you're the selfish one here. Let her come or not on her own terms, and stop being a brat. Lucas, 27 male, and I, 27 male, have been best friends since elementary school. It's no joke to say that we're closer than brothers. I know everything about him, and the same goes for him. We're part of a friend group that has known each other for years and years. Lucas has a wife, May, 28, who's fine, but she's very serious and can be a bit overbearingly clingy and boring. She doesn't fit in with our friend group. It just devolves into awkward silence and her trying to monopolize Lucas all the time and be prying. Even Lucas gets tired of her. Plus, she texts him literally all the time, and he usually has to mute notifications from her. We've been planning a group trip to hit up Southeast Asia for a while now, and we finally got to go. We were worried that May would want to come along, so we clarified that it was just the friend group. We also had a policy where we would try to be as low contact as possible. May agreed not to text and call Lucas at all during our trip, and Lucas and I even switched phones so he wouldn't pick up, which May knew about. The trip was a blast at first, but Lucas started getting weird. He kept asking me if May had contacted him yet, and to my surprise, she hadn't at all. He didn't believe me and snatched it from my hand to check. A couple of nights ago, he even rummaged through my backpack to check his phone. I shut it down. He got more cranky every day because he realized that May was capable of not spamming him with messages all this time and just now finally did it. When our trip was over, our flight arrived early, but May picked us up from the airport when she said she would arrive instead of coming earlier. Lucas asked her if she missed him, and May said, "Of course I did." Apparently all she did was read books and lounge around the house. Lucas was understandably annoyed, and she realized and asked him what was wrong. So I thought I would say something and make my buddy feel better. I said that Lucas had an awesome time. He was just annoyed to be back home in a boring town. I added that we didn't realize that she could stop herself from texting so much, and that we would have gone on the trip sooner if we had known, which was a joke. May said she was happy Lucas had fun and was sorry for texting so much before. I thought it was over and settled, but Lucas cussed me out later and called me an idiot, but she didn't seem hurt. She even laughed. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot, and you've read this all wrong. Lucas was cranky because he liked her text. He likes the idea of May thinking about him nonstop when they're not together. He likes feeling loved and needed. His first question upon return was to check if she missed him. You're projecting your dislike of May onto Lucas and being rude to both of them. Way too many words to say that OP's in love with his best friend. Pure jealousy. OP, you're clearly very jealous. However, this manipulation backfired for you, didn't it? She didn't ask to go on the trip you were determined to exclude her from. She didn't text, and guess what? He missed her. The joke's on you, and you are the joke and the idiot. Time to grow up. Please stop trying to come between your friend and his wife. He will choose her, and you'll lose your friend. Yep, you are not as good at reading people as you think you are. It's evident that May isn't as clingy as you think she is, that Luke likes it when May texts him, makes him feel missed, and he misses her too, and that you're the immature oddball in your friend group. I'm sure right now they're all saying you are the idiot. I'm 26 weeks pregnant, and my clothes have become too tight. This is my second pregnancy, and I bought a lot of maternity clothes during my first, but I donated them to a friend who's also pregnant, but was going through some financial hardships as she needed them more than I did. I was going to buy some more maternity clothes when I needed them, but I've started wearing my husband's clothes, and I find them a lot more comfortable. It's not like I'm going to work every day, so I've decided not to. My husband mostly doesn't complain about me stealing his clothes all the time, and I've had dinner with his family twice wearing his clothes. They've never said anything to me directly, but my sister-in-law told my husband to ask me to wear something more suitable the next time, as her parents would be there. I saw her text and they really upset me, so I'm refusing to buy maternity clothes just for their stupid dinners. My husband offered to go buy some for me and even tried dangling the idea of us going somewhere nice for a date soon to try to convince me that I need them, but I haven't budged. I did text my sister-in-law to let her know I didn't appreciate it, but that only opened the door for her to try to convince me and argue with me over my needing maternity clothes. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It didn't seem to bother your husband until his nosy sister stuck her nose into your business. Tell her she can decide what to wear the next time she has a baby. Otherwise, leave you alone. What a stupid thing for her to worry about. She's not paying your bills. I disagree. Everyone's the idiot here. Your husband is at least somewhat uncomfortable, seeing as he's brought up you needing clothes and is trying to convince you to buy some new outfits. But he shouldn't have let your sister-in-law get involved and should have handled it directly between you and him. Sister-in-law sucks for being a weirdo and getting so overly involved. You suck for being so stubborn and refusing to buy your own clothes. They're his clothes. Regardless of how comfortable they are, they're not yours. Go buy yourself some new clothes and leave his alone. Yeah, take the hint from your husband. He probably wants you out of his closet. If you wear your husband's basketball shorts to a reasonably okay restaurant where other women are wearing a nice sweater or blouse, I'd say you were pushing it. Something tells me you were not wearing his interview suit. If I were you, I would have one pair of presentable jeans, a sweater or blouse, and one cute dress that could either be worn day or night. It doesn't have to be a huge wardrobe. You can't get through 9 months on basketball shorts and football sweaters. Yes, wearing your husband's clothes around the house sounds lovely and comfortable, but going out to dinner in a baggy t-shirt and sweats is inappropriate and disrespectful to the host or other guest. Maybe OP's too tired to bother with shopping, but one shopping trip or some online shopping wouldn't hurt, and the clothes can be gifted forward later like last time. OP, being pregnant isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for pettiness.